daisy chains. Can't seem to recall my true given name.
Welcome to the social-engineer.org podcast number 57.
57 is a prime number.
Number 57.
Oh, Dave.
In 3 more episodes, it'll be your 60. Do you have anything special planned for that?
I
and that
don't.
actually maybe might be the one that you have for Black Hat DEF CON.
Oh, see, now you're right. August would be 60. We should plan something.
Or if people want to send in ideas as to what they want to have, that would be awesome too.
I like that. Thank you, Ping. Please send in your ideas. So, Ping, besides being the World Cup holder for women's killing things, or what is it again?
We'll just call it the World Cup of pigeon shooting.
There we are. The World Cup of pigeon shooting, which is like a big deal that you are the worldwide women's champion for this sporting event. And you just came back from like a European tour.
Well, not quite. There's this World Cup event, which was held in Madrid. And there was a Grand Prix event that was held 2 weeks before that in Brazil. And in June, I'll be going back to Portugal for the World Championship. And then that will be it for the spring shooting. But it's a pretty big deal because prior to Brazil, I had never shot this particular type of target. So I have less than 300 of these targets under my belt.
You basically are a tiny little Asian woman traveling the world with large guns.
Large gun. Just one.
One, okay.
And I beat out a lovely woman from Italy who had been the Ladies World Cup and World Champion holder in 2011 and I think 2013.
Wow. Well,
yes.
Congratulations.
Pretty amazing. Nice job. Congratulations.
Why, thank you. What's going on with you, gentlemen?
Well, me, it's just all work-related. Black Hat course, we're about 50% full there. DEF CON stuff's full swing. We got our CTF. We got people signing up for that. We've had over 22,000 hits on the registration page already. And we just released it like a couple weeks ago. You got the Kids CTF thing about to launch that too, coming up really soon. Let's see, Derby. We're finally making it to Derby this year, thank God.
Well, it's not like Derby's held 4 times a year and you haven't made it. You just didn't go last year.
Yeah.
Or the year before.
Or the year before.
Anyhow, I'm going this year, which is like awesome. And we got our class, which features my amazing bio of how I love to walk on the beach holding Dave's hand. I found out that you don't send your bio to Dave and ask him to put it on the website when you have no control of said website. So...
Oh, and it's just going to progressively get worse throughout the weeks. I'm just going to continue to add to it and like put like, we're going to have like the ASCII Goatsy on there as well for your bio.
Oh, please.
And some other stuff. Oh, yeah.
I am just surprised that he hasn't created, that you actually mutually haven't created some sort of Match.com or eHarmony profiles for one another.
Why? Ping, why? Why would you even have this idea out?
As I go to eHarmony right now to register an account. Yep, clicking through.
Ping, I thought you loved me.
Here.
What I want to know is why it didn't occur to either one of you before this.
I would like to not see that happen, personally. I would be very happy.
Well, since you're never on those sites, you won't ever see it happen, since you are happily married.
So maybe I won't be making Derby this year. I don't know. But anyhow, we're sponsoring Derby this year. We got some cool stuff planned for our Derby booth.
You need to move DerbyCon down in December so that it can be the 65th SC.org podcast that he does from Derby. So if you can just move your show down in December, I think we'd all appreciate it.
Or you guys can just move the podcast ahead or behind a little bit and do a special thing for Derby.
Really can't move the podcast. I mean, it's been around for 5 years now. It's hard to move.
I'm pretty sure Derby takes more precedence over your 5 years of doing the podcast.
I don't think so. I think the podcast has got more people listening to it than you get at Derby. I'm sorry, but...
Wait, what year Derby is it going to be for you, Dave?
4.0.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So, Derby's going good. Obviously, I saw you guys like sold out of your ticket when you released a few tickets early. They were like gone really quick.
Yeah, they were. And then the tickets are going good. I think we're over 50% sold. Yeah. So, if you're listening, you probably have a little bit of time still to get your tickets, but I wouldn't wait too long because it's definitely going to sell out. And we actually shrunk the count a bit this year. So.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I got a little pack last year. I think we ended up having like 2,200 people, so we shrunk it down to I think 1,700.
Yeah, so that's awesome. That's in September, so we'll be all out there.
We'll have to have a lot of whiskey,
Whiskey is good. We have lots of that.
especially in Kentucky.
Yes.
Oh, and by the way, we're in the midst of us Black Hat Review Board people, 450 plus submissions.
Jeez.
Yes, and we hope to get the first round selected and announced, I think, sometime the first week of May.
You going to be out of Black Hat this year?
I plan to be.
Awesome.
Although I should skip out on that and go to Derby instead.
Nothing from Dave. I'm shocked. I figured he would
No.
jump right on that.
He's probably doing something very private.
What?
I figured he would have jumped on that, you know?
Nah, I'm kind of mellowing out a little bit my old age.
Yeah, doubtful.
In his dotage. Your whole
No,
40
actually,
plus years.
you caught me because I'm still in the process of registering an eHarmony account. So
Anyhow, so as we know, because we talked about it a few times, my second book came out 2 months ago, and it's been going really good. From what I heard from my publisher, that it's going really, really positive and really well. There's been a lot of really nice feedback on it on Amazon, as well as people emailing me. And the book was written in conjunction with Dr. Ekman, who we had on the podcast a few years ago. And that podcast and our relationship kind of what led to this book, talking about nonverbals and his research into it and how we can use them as security people. So Dr. Ekman's actually going to join us this month on the podcast. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the new projects he's working on, as well as, of course, our favorite topic when it comes to facial expressions, and see what else we can learn from him. So we're going to get him on the show now. Dr. Paul Ekman, it's really great to have you with us.
Thank you.
Just to start off, I wanted to say thank you again for your help with the book. We were talking about that briefly before we got you on, and there's been so much positive feedback. The book's been out for a couple months, and I think having your help on the book, you and Paul Kelly, really made it a work that a lot of people are able to reference scientifically. So I know the community and our community has been really enjoying it. So I just wanted to say thank you again for your help with that. Been a pleasure working with you there.
Well, thank you very much. Don't forget the important contribution of your very talented daughter.
Yes, I know she is still amazed. She says one of her friends went to the bookstore. She was telling them she was on there and in the book, and they went to the bookstore, Barnes & Nobles, and they found the book, and they opened it, and there's her picture. So she's got this Instagram picture of her friend taking a picture of her in a book. It's kind of funny. But yeah, she's been practicing, and I was talking to your daughter Eve about inviting her on the podcast too. And when my daughter heard that, she's very excited. She wants to meet her and talk to her. So you never know what kind of inspiration that gives for the young ones nowadays, huh?
Yeah, it's really good.
So last time we had you on, we were talking, of course, a lot about focusing on facial expressions and nonverbals in general. And then over the last couple of years, especially with writing the book and working together and things, you have a chance to really expand your research into different areas. So what kind of research are you getting into nowadays?
Well, the biggest task in front of me is trying to do something the Dalai Lama asked me to do, which was to determine what is the consensus among scientists studying emotion. What do they agree about and what do they disagree about? In 1994, I co-edited a book called The Nature of Emotion with Richard Davidson, and emotion was just coming alive then. So there were about 20 people. It was easy to identify who they were and ask them to contribute to this book. Now, it's a much, much larger field, and if the survey that I'm going to do is going to be of value, it has to be representative. It has to include in the people who are asked all the people who are studying emotion and the major contributors. So, for example, in order to get into the survey, you've got to have published in a refereed journal at least 5 times in the last 8 years. Another way we can get on is if you are on the board of editors of the American Psychological Association's journal, Emotion, if you have served on the board of editors. It's quite a task to get an unbiased representative sample of the people who are most active in the field of emotion today. So that's the first task that I'm working on, and I think I'll have that list of people by next week. Don't yet know how many people will be on it, how many will meet the criteria, but I believe that the selection principles, ones that protect me against a deliberate or unwitting bias in any direction. Then the next issue is, what do you ask them? What are the questions? What are the most important questions to ask? And how do you ask them in a way that's unbiased? Now, probably everybody has a question they think is most important. The more questions I ask, the smaller will be the return rate. So I'm after asking no more than 6 questions. Figure everybody's got the time to answer 6 questions, particularly if you don't have to write your answer down, you have to make a choice. So I'll give you the first question. What have you found is the most useful theoretical perspective to guide your research and thinking about emotion? And then they're given 4 choices: a positive to negative dimension, an approach to avoid dimension, a circumplex model that combines positive to negative with strong to weak, and the last is discrete emotions such as anger, fear, sadness, and disgust. Now, you're allowed to check more than one, and you're allowed to give ties. If there are 2 that are equally important, you can give them a tied rank. So that's the opening question. Very fundamental question. I think I've included in these 4 choices the 4 competing perspectives, and mine I'm putting last among the 4. Mine, of course, is the discrete emotions such as anger, fear, or sadness, the same as Darwin. I'm getting feedback from a couple of other scientists about the questions. I will, when the survey goes out, there will be 2 things that people surveyed can do. They can look at the list of people to whom it was sent, because I'll provide that. And if they think there's somebody really important that's missing, they can put that person's name down. And if that person that they mentioned meets the criteria or is mentioned by more than 10%, then they'll get into the survey. They can also, if there's none of the questions are the ones they most want to get an answer to, they can write a question and give their answer. And if that question pops up on more than 10% of the people surveyed, it'll be included. So it's a 2-step procedure. I've got to get this out to people before the end of May because everybody disappears over the summer months. So there's quite a lot of pressure. It's taking almost all of my free time. I've got my daughter helping me on the questions, and I've got a former student of mine helping me on the selection of the people to be surveyed. That's crowded everything else out. At the same time, a very new tool, which we call REQ, which stands for Responding Effectively to Emotional Expressions, which tries to guide you in thinking about, once you spot someone's emotion, what's the best way to respond to it in different situations? In this tool, we present 3 situations. One that's parent-child, another that's employer-employee, and another is criminal suspect and policeman. And in each one, there's a lot of choices and a lot of feedback. By next week, This time we will have gotten the feedback from over 100 beta testers and see whether there's anything we need to change. If there isn't, we will announce its availability the following week. If there is, I'll have to get to work on figuring out what needs to be changed. So this is really keeping me busy between the emotion survey and the beta testing of REQ. I barely have time to breathe.
Yeah, I got a chance to be on the beta list for the RE Cubed. Yeah, which I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I got to play around with the parent-child scenario.
That's the only one we're testing at this point.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was really interesting. I got a chance to go through and answer the way that I felt that I would normally answer with my kids, and then go back and do it all the other ways and hear the positives and negatives of choosing to respond to the emotion in each way. So I found that to be a great part of the learning tool, was I wasn't stuck to just one path. I can keep going back and listening to all paths and then seeing how the reactions might adjust based on my reaction.
So now, did you do it with both a close and a strained relationship?
I did. Yeah, I did. I first did it close because that's what I am with my kids, and then I went back and did it with a strange relationship to see how that worked.
So how long do you think it took you to go through it?
Well, if I went through it and just did it as I would have answered to see what response I got, it was actually relatively quick. It was maybe 7 minutes, 8 minutes, but then I went back and went through each scenario and went through each response for each scenario. So I went back and did close and then did estranged and then did all, I think, 5 or 6 choices for each, and listened to your video feedback on why that response would be good or bad. So probably maybe 30 minutes to do the whole thing.
Well, that's good. And we hope people will do the whole thing. You know, when they purchase it, they're going to have it for a year. They can do it as many times as they want, and they don't have to do it all in one sitting. They'll get all 3 when they purchase the first one. They'll get notified when the second one is ready. And it's already been created. I just need to beta test each one at a time. See whether there's any things we need to fix. I've been working on this tool for at least 4 years, accumulating the money to pay for it. There's quite a bit of video that had to be shot. The video of me was easy, but the setup scenes that you saw of the parent and the child, and of course, you can do it with a male or a female offspring, and you can do it as a father or a mother. And that meant we had to shoot 4 different versions of it. That is the most costly, because those are all professional actors and professional video and audio people who actually had worked on the program Telling Lies, who I hired to create these scenarios. So it was a lot of fun, but it's been a long time in the making. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And, of course, what I hope is that what I'll get back from the beta people is don't change anything. But you never know until you get people who are unfamiliar with it. Now, you were in the group of professionals that were beta testing it, but we're also just picked people who at some time in the past had purchased MET and who weren't, as far as we know, professionals. We're just getting the beta results on those people now.
What I think is useful about the tool is because all the other ones we're talking about just learning how to read facial expressions, which is of course very valuable for anyone to learn those skills. But this took that to another level, because now we're not talking about just learning to see a facial expression, but to read the emotion and then react to it, which is probably, in my opinion, 10 times harder than just learning to read the emotion.
Right, absolutely. I mean, you got to learn to spot the emotion. That's step 1. But step 2, how to react, that's a big step. And as far as I know, nobody has tried before to help people think about that and get some practice at it. And so I think this will be a very helpful tool. And also I'm expecting that even if you're not a boss, you'll be interested to see how the boss handles the employee. And even if you're not a law enforcement officer, you'll still want to take a look and see what the police do with a suspect who they know is guilty and denies it. I'm hoping people will end up doing all three scenarios and will learn from each one, even if they don't directly apply to those situations. They'll learn things that will help them with other situations they encounter.
I'm sure they will. When you tie that back into like your emotion mapping project that you're working on now, here you're taking this first step with like the RE Cube to teach people how not just to read the emotion but respond to it. And now you're mapping emotions in this other project.
Well, that's still another project that will get moving once RE Cube is done, and once the survey is done, then all my focus will go into allowing people to become explorers of their own emotions by utilizing a map, just as if they were trying to find unknown territories or partially known territories that they can explore their own emotions and how they experience them. That's waiting, and that's a project that, like the survey, it was the Dalai Lama's idea, not mine. It's my idea as to how you do it. It's his idea that we need it. And he's actually the sponsor who's giving me the funds to be able to do it.
And once it's done, what's the hope? Like, how will this benefit just people in general being able to map out or study a map of emotions?
They'll have another way. Maps are very interesting metaphors. And we've all used maps to find out how to get from here to there. Well, you're going to use a map to find out how to get from anger to a calm state. Or what happens when you go from anger to fear. And this will all be your own exploration. We'll just provide the tools, if you like. We'll provide the ship that you can use to navigate your own emotions and learn about it. So I really won't know whether it's going to work until we create it, but I'm pretty confident that this will be very appealing to people and that they'll use it to find out things really about themselves. And also I hope that the voyagers or explorers who do this, that over time they'll create their own database so they can look at how their exploration compares to other people's explorations. If this all works out correctly, and you never know, there have been dead ends in my career where I started working on something in a few months or 6 months, once a year or something, and I got nowhere. And you don't know until you try. If you already know, it's not worth trying.
I
It's
love
only
that.
worth trying if you don't know the answer and you don't know whether it's going to work. So you find out, and sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't, as long as you can recognize when you're in a dead end, and as long as you don't mind taking the risk of being in a dead end. That's how I've spent my life. Largely been just very lucky. And most of the ideas I've worked on, like this one with a map, I would never have thought of doing that if the Dalai Lama hadn't suggested it to me. I would never have thought of trying to find out whether expressions and gestures are universal or not. Somebody in a funding agency had asked me to go get the answer, find out what the answer is to that. Once he asked me the question, I thought, gee, that's a great question. Let's see if we can settle it. And the same with deception. It was the psychiatrists who have to make the decision whether to let a patient have a weekend pass, knowing that some of those patients who say they're feeling much better just want to get the pass so they can kill themselves. So that suggested to me, wow, that's the whole issue of can you spot whether someone's lying about something where the stakes are really high? That was their question, not mine. But I spent 25 years working on getting an answer to it. So most of the time, people have asked me questions, and I guess it's been my talent to recognize the really good questions and then to have had the good fortune that I could put in a lot of time working with a team of researchers that I recruited to get answers to some of these questions.
So, what was the? It's interesting to hear that like this is motivated by someone like the Dalai Lama. So, what was his motivation in trying to have emotions mapped?
Well, he said to me, when we wanted to get to the New World, we needed a map in order to get there. If we want to get to a calmer state of mind, we need a map to understand and navigate our emotions. That was it. That was as much as he said. I thought about it for over a year and figured out some ideas about how to create a map that would allow people to explore. Met with him just about a month ago and showed him the plan I had. Asked him if he wanted me to go ahead, would he support it? Indeed, he did. But he said to me, make sure it's based on what scientists agree about. That's why I take on this survey. That's his idea too.
Because, I mean, I could obviously see so many benefits, even therapeutically, forgetting about security for a second and someone being able to map out why they feel a certain way or why certain emotions seem to overtake a person, whether they're positive or negative. What a powerful tool that would be to be able to help someone therapeutically get past things that maybe they haven't been able to in their past.
Yeah, I think people are going to find this a very useful tool for exploring their inner life.
Which, I mean, it just kind of seems like what you've been doing with your life, trying to understand people's emotions and nonverbal behavior, always with the goal of helping people understand how these emotions can be either harnessed or controlled if they're negative, or understood at least.
Yeah, I was just amazed when I started out on this research 57 years ago. I published my first paper. 57 years, my God. 1957, I published my first paper on nonverbal behavior. I was just amazed that we didn't know the answers already to these things. So, we were okay. We don't know. I'm going to try to find out. I didn't realize how long it was going to take me. Take me a lifetime. And, there's still a lot of things I don't know the answer to, but there's some of the basics that I think I've gotten a pretty good, solid answer. Starting with universals, my focus is on individual experience. How everyone gets angry. Doesn't matter what country you live in, what language you speak, but we get angry in different ways. Even my wife and we've been together for 35 years, but we don't experience anger the same way. Well, in what way is it different? Hers and mine. How can I learn to better understand my own experiences? And not just of anger, of each of the emotions. So it's a huge territory that we all live within. And all I'm trying to do now is to give us more tools to explore that territory.
How does it make you feel when you see so much research being done by so many talented people all over the earth about emotions, and there always is a reference to your work? It's got to make you sit back and go, wow, man, I spent the last 57 years of my life researching this, and now it's being used all over the globe.
Well, it certainly feels better than if it was being totally ignored. But I try not to pay attention to that, to who's using it or when, or, because you can get too preoccupied with that.
That's true.
I'm still working on new things, as I've been describing, and my focus isn't on the past, and my focus isn't even on the present. It's where I can go next. What's on the horizon, that's what I'm focused on.
Yeah, what a wonderful way to live life, I would imagine. Probably a very emotionally healthy.
It is a wonderful way to live life.
Yeah.
It's a risky way because you don't know what's going to happen. I was very fortunate that I came to start my scientific career at a point where there was a lot of support for science. There's much less support these days than there was when I started out. Just to give you an example, when I started out, half of the research grants that were submitted were funded. Now it's about 4%. If I was starting out now, I wouldn't do any research. 4%, those odds are too much against you. We are no longer supporting basic research in the behavioral sciences. It's been almost eliminated, and the costs to the world and to our country, they'll be felt 5, 10, 15 years from now, because we'll stop producing new people. I talk to young students and I say, I'm a dinosaur. You can't follow my path. It doesn't exist anymore. For budgetary reasons and other reasons, they just sort of eliminated that path. Less so in England, less so in Germany than in the United States.
So I'm sure young students ask you that all the time. So what do you tell them to start as a path? Maybe psychology or?
The joke, if you want to live the American dream, move to Denmark. My version of that, if you want to live the American dream in research, go move to Britain or Germany, because they're still supporting research like we used to in this country. I certainly wouldn't pursue a research career in the behavioral sciences or on emotion. I wouldn't start now. If I was starting now, I wouldn't try and do it in the United States. I'd probably try and do some, maybe I'd try to do some techie thing. That's where all the activity is. But that doesn't really interest me. And the financial market, that's the thing that seems to draw young people. That doesn't interest me either. Couldn't care less about that. It's just understanding ourselves. That's what still interests me the most. But it's much harder to do in the United States than it is in some other countries where they're still supporting researchers.
That's interesting because I didn't know that part, that they were privatizing it now and it wasn't really something that's supported outwardly. It's kind of sad almost, do you think about it?
Yep, I think so. But fortunately, I have a new financial sponsor. He's called the Dalai Lama.
Yes. Yeah. That's kind of amazing if just to kind of hear that from you. That I know previously from your book that you wrote and your conversation with him, you guys have been friends for quite a few years.
Yep, we certainly have. He's only a year older than he is, and he's in very good health. I think he's going to be around for a good long time. He's still working hard to try to help not just the Tibetan people and the Tibetan people in exile, but his concern is really for the world, that we make the world a safer place for all of us.
How is he as a person?
Just wonderful. Funny. I never laugh as much as when I'm with him. He always sees the humor in things, but he's a very serious person. But he's a jokester also. He can always see the funny side of things. But we're talking about serious matters for hours on end. Usually when we meet, it's for 3 or 4 hours. And then we'll meet the next day for another 3 or 4. 3 or 4 hours of intense discussion. That's exhausting.
Emotionally exhausting, I'm sure.
Yep. There are a lot of Western concepts that just aren't known in the Tibetan world. Like the whole idea that there are moods, and that you can be in the grip of a mood where you feel blue all day or you feel irritable all day. He thought that was just amazing. That it isn't that he didn't experience it, but he didn't understand what these things were that would suddenly happen to him or other people. Now he does. It's a good example of the power of getting a concept and an understanding of something that happens within yourself that you didn't understand it before. Now, once you do, you can deal with it much better.
Was that part of the motivation for wanting to map out those emotions?
Well, it certainly is, and not much I can talk much more about because we haven't really started it, and we won't until the emotion survey is over and the beta testing. I won't really have the time to work on it.
Yeah.
So that's a few months from now.
Understood. Yeah, it's just fascinating. I mean, I'm really excited to see how that all comes together, how it works out, and the benefits that it will have. As you know, we're always trying to take research from people like you who have devoted your life to one area, like understanding emotions and nonverbal expressions, and trying to see how we can use that to enhance the education for our industry. Nowadays, it seems like every time we turn the news on, some other company's got hacked or there's been another data breach, some kind of malicious attack on an organization or a government or something to that effect. And a lot of times these things lead right back to human vulnerability. to people. So understanding how our emotions get used as a weapon sometimes for us is valuable, because then we can try to help our clients, our friends, our families, the people that we work with, to understand how the bad guys are using that emotional weapon, and then hopefully protect them against it. And I'm sure this will be just as amazing as a tool to help with that.
Well, I hope so. And I hope there'll be a way to convince the bad guys that there's a better way to pursue their ends than by misleading people.
You would hope. It just seems nowadays there's just so much money for them in it, and it seems like when the economy is bad in certain countries, crime just seems to go up. The accounts of just stealing people's lives. I just heard last couple of years ago stories about how now these scammers are using atrocities, like when a tsunami hits or an earthquake hits or some other big natural disaster where people have lost lives and communications are down. They'll use those events to trick people into giving their bank accounts or credit cards to help with fake charities, and then they'll steal everything from their accounts, playing on people's emotions about that atrocity or what happened. It's hard. How do you train people to be aware of that? You don't want to create an environment where people don't feel compassion anymore, because that's not beneficial for anyone. But they use that compassion to kind of pit them. And it's a scary proposition many times.
Yes, it is. And that makes me want to mention the fact that in the middle of May, my new book, Moving Towards Global Compassion, will be published and available as an ebook or as a paperback.
When is that coming out?
Middle of May.
That is excellent.
I hope that some of the people and problems that you're talking about, people will help people think more clearly about how we really need to find ways to generate more concern for everyone and less exploitation.
How do you suggest that happens?
Well, that's a whole separate talk.
Looking really forward to that, because from our discussions, compassion and empathy is a very big topic for us. For me especially, I love to read about that and look into that.
And this is a pretty short book. It's only 100 pages.
Oh, wow. Excellent. That will be an easy read.
I hope so.
I like books that are short, not like Chris's.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
I just read through all of Dr. Ekman's stuff and skipped all yours.
Yeah, well, they're better, right? And you have how many now? With this one, it's 14?
The new one will be the 15th book.
15th book. Wow. Yeah, well, that's a nice legacy to have there, too. I'm really looking forward to that topic. So I guess we got a lot to watch for. Your website, you just redid that, pauleckman.com. You guys redid the whole website. It looks so much nicer. It's really easy to navigate.
Yeah, I agree. I was just on a few minutes ago. And it looks
that
nice.
Was our goal.
Yeah, you did a great job with that. The people you had work on that, and finding the training and your other research papers and things is much easier now. Links to your books and things like that. So people can check that out at the pauleckman.com site. I know a lot of you have some support from your team, but you've been real active on Twitter, putting out research and other documents and reports and things that have been going on involving emotions and nonverbal expressions. That's kind of great too, and people can follow you there at Paul Ekman on your Twitter account too, right?
Yes, they can.
I wanted to thank you again.
Yeah, we're figuring the launching of the book and the completing of REQ, and making it available should be about the same time, the middle of May.
So maybe we'll set up some time in a couple months, get back on and talk about the new Compassion book. That would be just excellent.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right, nice talking to you.
You too, Dr. Ekman.
You too, Dr. Ekman. Good talking to you, man.
Thank you.
All right, bye now.
Bye.
Bye-bye. He always has the most interesting things to say.
Yeah.
It's really hard to come up with a question because you're like, oh, no, I want you to keep talking.
I know. I just could sit there and listen to him. It's like not even a podcast. It's like just a conversation with one of the coolest guys I've ever got the pleasure of getting to know.
He's amazing.
He is.
I think he was born in 1936 or something like that. Just the amount of knowledge he has, is absolutely insane.
And the fact that he just doesn't care about the little mundane things, right? I love what he said, that he's just looking on the horizon for what's coming next. I wrote this down because this is got to be something. If you already know something, it's not worth trying. Only do things that you don't know. Challenge yourself. I love that. That guy just really makes me want to try harder. Pretty cool about his new research. I'm really looking forward to seeing how they do this mapping of emotions. A phenomenal tool for us, even in the security industry. He's like just turned 80 years old, which you would never know it when you hear his schedule. So he's an 80-year-old guy that's...
Dude's like running mad around the world.
Right, around the world, and he's doing 2 massive research projects that he just started at 80, and his 15th book is just getting printed now. I mean, that's crazy. The guy's like amazing. If I have half of the willpower and energy that he has when I'm 80, I'm going to be one happy guy.
You don't already, so
I know.
It's probably not going to come to you.
Oh, Dave, I don't even know why I like you. Well, you know, Dave, to be nice to you for 1 second, and then I'm going to go back to not being nice. In a couple months, we're talking about our 5-year anniversary, and you've been with me all 5 years.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, it really is.
What is the 5-year
I stuck-
anniversary gift?
I don't know. Isn't it like paper?
We've been through a lot. I remember, sitting in the IRC chat room, we were talking about starting social-engineer.org, and, I was like, all right, let's make set. And, you're like, all right, let's do the podcast. And I mean, crazy. That was 5 years ago, man.
5 years. Can you even believe that?
Okay, all right. You need to give him something silver or wood. The traditional gift is wood. The modern gift is silverware. You need to give him a silver spoon or a fork or a knife.
A silver spoon. Oh, man. How about a wooden spoon?
That too. That'll work.
Can I get a wooden spork?
A wooden spork.
Ooh, you can, actually.
Oh, wooden spork. Those are good.
Yes.
Folks, another great podcast.
Yeah. It's always amazing to get the legend, the man, the myth, Dr. Ekman. Amazing.
And it probably was the least security-related podcast we ever had, but it was just a great conversation.
Yep, I agree.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I guess
Love you all.
we'll be back next month. We got another great guest coming on.
Bruce Hornsby, everybody. It finally happened. Chris arranged it. We got Bruce Hornsby coming on. I'm so excited.
It's not Bruce Hornsby.
Yes, it is.
Someday we will get him on just for the heck of it, and then we'll tell him how much we hate his music.
Great.
Okay, well, you can check us out at social-engineer.org or social-engineer.com. Of course, our Twitter is Human Hacker, and our corporate Twitter is SOC Engineer Inc. If you're on the IRC networks, you can do irc.freenode.net, channel social-engineer. Until next month, we'll see you.
Later.
My heart is gone. I'm gone cold. The path gives way to a cold winter field. The ground below, hard as steel. Beyond the hill, a distant song, but that hill keeps going on and on. My heart is gone. I'm gone cold. My heart is gone. I'm gone cold. Swan boats and daisy chains. Can't seem to recall any given name. I see the footprints, how they come, how they go. Was that only a moment, or many years ago? My heart is gone,